How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the live stream taco extravaganza. Looks like DC's a new sub. Hey, welcome. If it's your first one, awesome. Let's see, what else? Tonight we're talking about growing plants and breeding fish for profit. Now, profit's a loose term, but at least to get you some more fish and equipment and stuff like that. So, let's see. Where do we want to start? Who's got questions? Who watched the viewer home show this morning? So one of the people there was breeding black Moscow guppies and shrimp, and now he's up to like 17 tanks, and all from that kind of mindset. So I know I realize I'm going up against a wall here. I'm going up against I think it's like mid-season finale, The Walking Dead, but mid-season finale sounds like a made-up thing, by the way. Like this is mid-December live stream finale, right? And then there'll be one next week too. Am I against Endler hybrids? Nope. They're basically, in my opinion, just like guppies. I think there's a lot of cool strains, and I think they sell well. Yeah. Got my first live plant. It's growing out of control. Good. Let's look. Rams for profit? Rams can be profitable, yes, but you really got to have a big operation to do it. So I know a guy that breeds rams for me, and at one point, I think it was in the 80s, he was breeding 3,000. That's not true. He was selling 3,000 rams a week to different wholesalers. So he had an entire operation dedicated to breeding German Blue Rams, and made quite a bit of money doing it. Also was a lot of work. So it can be done. I don't know if it can really be done with like 2 or 3 fish tanks. I mean, there's profit where it's like I put in $5, I came out with $50. And then there's I put in $5 and 50 hours of my time and pulled out $50. So, if you're just doing it on the hobbyist level, rams make probably a good investment. If you're doing it on the I have to pay my rent scale, you need a building like this probably to pull it off with rams and stuff like that. The Human Pleco says, what do I think the best fish to breed for profit? In my opinion, guppies. They're super duper easy, super high demand, and colorful. They stay small. And I should cover that. When I'm looking for a fish to breed, or at least when I was, and I still do, I like to develop a list of things, of criteria that I think sell well. So typically, the smaller the fish is, the more people will buy, and the smaller tank it can live in. So if you breed Oscars, you're probably not going to sell too many Oscars. The person in the store is not going to sell too many Oscars to 10-gallon tanks, for instance. But guppies would fit. They'll even fit in a 5-gallon tank. So then you want color. People typically want color. You want it so they're typically not aggressive, because if people get a bad taste in their mouth of, oh, I bought an African cichlid and it ate all my fish, they tend to not want African cichlids. What else? What are the other things that I had? Grow out time. So like a neon tetra, for instance, I'm not willing to grow it for 8 to 12 months, even though it is small, it is colorful. It's just, I don't think it's profitable at the price it's going to sell. And then there's things like difficulty. Can I even breed that? I've never bred a neon tetra, and I'm not sure I could. / I definitely don't want to go through the work of doing that. So I create a list, and I literally write it down. So write down a list of all the criteria you could think would be important, and then you write down a list of the fish you think you want to breed, and start putting check marks like, yep, it would be small. Ooh, it's a little aggressive. Oh, it's got special water parameters. Oh, it only eats that. There's these things, and then, you basically want to, the one with the most check marks of like, oh, that seems like the next best fish I should be breeding. And that's how you find the new fish once you've already been doing like, okay, I'm doing shrimp, I'm doing guppies, I'm doing platies, I'm doing, So that kind of sets a mindset, hopefully. While I'm thinking about it too, all the breeding supplies and Hikari foods are 12% off on the website tonight. So trying to put Kaylee to work tomorrow. That's always my goal. And we also got some new products. I listened to you guys last week. You wanted the Instant Live brine. It's now on the website, so got it in. We got it on the website, ready to order up. Should be cheaper than Amazon even at this point. And if you spend $100, free shipping, which I get it, you can buy it from Amazon and you get free shipping cheaper, but we're just not on that scale. At least not for the next 10 years probably. So, if you buy $100 worth of stuff, we can eat that shipping cost and send it to you, but if you only buy one thing of live brine, the shipping, I would lose money. I would just straight up lose money. So, let's see. What do you guys think is the easiest beginner plant to grow in a planted aquarium? For breeding for profit, I would say Java moss. That's the easiest, I think. Can cribs be profitable? They can. So any fish can be profitable depending on where in the world or where in the country you are. Like sometimes common cribs won't sell at all, and then other times you're getting $6 a piece all day long for them. The guy that breeds rams for me, he keeps picking up rarer strains of Cribensis or Tenatus, whether it's Naite or it's Lobe, stuff like that. The problem is you can make 100 of them. That's pretty easy, but you can only sell about 20 of them. That's the hard part. So you got to make sure you can sell what you breed. If you're not doing that, you're just costing yourself money. Breeding goldfish, I mean, obviously some people are doing it for profit, right? But I feel like it's one of the, without having the advantage of, let's say, warmer weather outside all the time and big lots of land, I think you're at a competitive disadvantage, so I might not try it myself. That being said, some people do make a career out of breeding, let's say, ranchus or some specific line and improving them and building a brand. But just like Aquarium Co-op, I can make my money whether I'm selling tacos or fish. It's the brand you guys, grow to love, not so much any one thing. So, yeah, I still think, if that person was doing goldfish, if they had their own line of guppies, they'd probably still do better. Best foods to grow out platyfry? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when you're breeding fish, growing them the fastest, it's always going to be live food. So maybe live microworms, grindle worms, live brine shrimp, Daphnia. If we're talking like a dry food, let's say, I like my fry food a lot. It's quick and easy. I use a lot of that, and I vary it up a little bit. Today I fed, you'll see it in the video coming out, but I fed goldfish flakes. Actually, it was pretty decent. It's from Sarah. I thought it was crap. It turns out it's okay. Let's see. Scroll down a little bit. Bettas for profit. Here's the problem for bettas, I think. Both wild types, so like let's say, what is it, Machachai, there's like the strawberry bettas, there's rubras, there's simplex, there's all these types, and then there's the fancy bettas too, right? When you breed, let's say you get a good pair of fancy bettas, let's say it's a mustard gas, with another female, it's nice. You breed them, and they all come out relatively the same-ish color. A local fish store can't really move that many of the same color. So I find people get stuck with a lot of them. So the guy, for instance, that breeds me rams, he likes to breed bettas every once in a while, and that's why I haven't done any videos on it. When he does it again, we're going to shoot a bunch of videos, and he's really good at it. The problem is he does it for fun because it's not profitable. So he bred them, he raised them up, and then we sold them in the store, retailed at $1 a piece at about this big. Even though he imported the bettas from Thailand, they're super nice. But when you go, boom, here's 170 of them, it just floods out an area. So if you had that brand or that personality online and you were the betta queen, then you might make lots of good money selling bettas and betta supplies. But if you're going to walk into your local fish store and say, hey, I'm going to supply bettas, they're going to tell you that, well, if I buy them 600-700 at a time, they're $0.25 each. Can you match that? And you're going, I feed them $1.20 in food. That's not going to work. So a lot of work, little return on that one. But if you enjoy it and you don't have to factor in the work, when you enjoy something, just like I enjoy cleaning my koi pond, I don't think about it as I'm cleaning it going, oh, you know how much money I'm losing? I could be, delivering pizza right now. So if you're really enjoying it, you kind of throw the time out the window. And that makes it a lot easier to actually be profitable. Let's see. I set up a 10-gallon planet tank. Are there any really small fish that will colonize similar to Burchardi? Let me do some brain thinking here. I mean, obviously there's going to be shell dwellers like Multifasciatus or Similis. You could probably... I've seen people colony out Telomatochromous and also Julidochromis transcriptus. If you wanted to branch off of, let's say, Tangannican cichlids, you could do other small fish, like, let's say, Heterandia formosa. There's a lot of dwarf lybears that stay pretty small. I feel like you could colony breed something like Gardneri killifish and a few others. I'm sure there's some more things I could think up, too. Evan says, what's the best breed of guppies for money? Depends on your local area. I find, for me personally, just generic fancy guppies that are mixed sell really, really well. But I also do well with my reds, and the gentleman in the home show earlier today was doing well with Moscows. I think you got to see what's available. So, for instance, if you live in cichlid country and no one really wants high-end guppies, you're going to do far better with generic guppies that are just being sold to people that walk into the pet store that aren't super hardcore in the hobby, where it's typically... If you're going to sell online, those are the people, it's a guy like me that goes, well, I'll give you $200 for that trio of guppies. Like, I'm stupid and crazy, and I'll do it. But your average person isn't going to do it. So, at that point, genetics tend to be much stronger and robust and grow faster. And that's why you see things like Texas shovel-nose hybrid catfish grow twice as fast as either one independently. Would breeding red terraciclids be good for profit? Most likely not. If you can sell directly to a wholesaler and they're willing to give you decent money and they can actually sell that many of them, but they're going to have so many babies at a time that on their fourth spawn in a month, you're going to be sitting around 12,000 fry, and that's really difficult numbers to move / raise up / keep profitable. So that's the biggest thing, I think, when it comes to breeding stuff for profit. Make sure you have a buyer, because, just like, let's say you want to buy a Lamborghini, there's only so many buyers at that price. So if they set up 5 more plants to make Lamborghinis, they don't make more money. There's only so many buyers, and that's the same thing. When you set up shop, figure out how many buyers, only breed to that many. The Human Pleco says, do you think you could breed convicts for profit? I do think you could. It would be a very specific setup, though. It would be maybe an outdoors setup, and you have reasonably warm water, and the land is free. And so here's how I would do it, right? I'm going to take this hat off. I got to really do some brain thinking now that my hair's all messed up. So let's say you want to take something like convicts. You kind of have to hack the system to make this profitable. What do you mean hack the system? What I mean is, if I take this tank right behind me and I fill it full of convicts and I raise them up and I feed them traditional food, it won't be profitable because the price of a convict is so low. Like a wholesaler most times would give you about 25 cents for a convict cichlid at about, let's say, this big. It's really hard when you factor in time, food, and heat and water to get that to that big for 25 cents. So if we're going to hack the system, how do we do that? If we use free water, so let's say we use rainwater, let's say we use free food. How do you do free food? Well, let's say you had a pond, and let's say it's 1,000 gallons, and you've got some convicts in there, and it stays warm enough outside year-round that they never have to come in, and then you set it up so chickens, their chicken coop is over the convict cichlids. As the chickens go to the bathroom, or a hutch would do the same thing. As they go to the bathroom, you would get the food going in. Convicts are going to eat that feces. Meanwhile, your chickens might be producing eggs, which you could also, if you had too many eggs, you could use that and grind that up and feed that to the fish as well. And then on top of that, you could have like a little bog area where, let's say you're growing irises or something like that you're going to sell to your local nursery during pond time. But you'd have to do something out of the ordinary and use some advantages that your geographical region has to really make something like that profitable, in my opinion. For all I know, there's 10 people sitting in the room going, well, I'm making a killing on convicts. And all I can say is, hey, I'm glad you are, because I'm not. I got a bunch of convicts I can't give away. Any fish with a koi version sells like hotcakes right now. Yeah, maybe. I personally, like, the swordtails, I wouldn't bring in. I can't give those things away, koi swords. That's why they keep renaming them as Santa Claus swordtails and things like that. Kohaku swordtails. They're trying to find a name that will actually sell that fish. The problem is the general public doesn't actually like that fish. Koi guppies, I don't think actually would sell that well in comparison to just normal fancy guppies. That being said, I don't have any, so I haven't been able to test that. Koi bettas sell well, but really it's just a blotchy color. That's the only thing that's selling well. It's not really a koi coloration. And then koi angels do sell reasonably well, and I think it's just because it's a color form that people aren't used to. But yeah. Let's see here. What fish can breed with guppies in the same tank? I mean, you could do a lot of different types of fish, but it's all going to hurt you on the amount of fry you're going to raise up from it. So, for instance, I've done guppies and... I'm having a brain fart here. Bristlenose plecostomus, the same tank. I've got it going on with my panda guppies and bristlenose right now. Food is limited, and space is limited. And so what happens is, if you've got a ton of guppies, you're not going to have very many fry for the bristlenose because they're going to starve out. / you've got all these big females that are hungry. They're going to be preying on babies. I've seen big pregnant female guppies eat newborn plecostomus. But you can do shrimp and things like that. Just realize it's all a space thing. So the more space you have, the more fish you can have, which means the more species you could have. But a lot of times, if you had the option of 2 20-gallon tanks or 1 40-gallon tank, I'd probably take 2 20-gallon tanks and breed separately, and I would get a better yield. Let's see here. Yeah, I should mention that. If you guys haven't already, I've got a whole series on breeding fish for profit, and it's like 6 episodes long or something like that, and it covers a lot of things more in depth. And if that's something you're really serious, I think you should watch. And it's from what I'm told at least, everyone thinks it's a good investment of their time. How do I approach a local fish store about selling discus? First, I would say I would find out how many discus are they selling a month. Like, I am a fairly successful store. I can look that number. Well, let me see if I can look that number up for you right now. Well, we just switched to a new system, so it's not going to be accurate. But I know that I sell less than 10 discus a month. Conversely, I sell a few hundred guppies and a few hundred of almost every other fish. I only have discus sitting there, so we don't have to answer the questions of why don't you carry discus. It's the least profitable tank in my entire store. Display tanks included. I make more money off my display tanks than I do that discus tank because I can farm plants and things like that out of it. But see how many they sell. If they sell a ton and they're looking and they don't have a supply already, maybe there's room for you. But most times, I think it's a hard sell. Let's see here. Looking for more questions on breeding, and especially plant questions. There's a lot of money to be made on plants, and people just aren't asking me. Like, no one ever asks me about plants and how to make money, so I don't tell them. Thoughts on breeding wag platies for profit? I like that. I like a good red wag platy. Sells well in a store, and platies are much better than swordtails because you never have to wait for them to sex out and get the sword. And they grow relatively quick, and they don't prey on their fry too much. I'm a big proponent of platies as well. What do I think about breeding shell dwellers? They seem to be breed pretty well on their own and produce a good amount of fry. Just curious on your thoughts. I have no trouble making them. The problem is finding homes for them. Like in my store, I own shelldwellers.com. I brought in all types of shells. I brought in like 6 different types of shell dwellers, and we could barely give them away. We ended up clearancing them all out after about 6 months going, there's just not enough buyers for shell dwellers. The other problem you run into, in my opinion, with Lake Tanganyika species, which shell dwellers are, is that everyone wants a specific strain. So you might have gold ocellatus, and they're going, well, I'd rather have this other type of ocellatus, or this, I really want brevis, but I want brevis catumba instead of the ones you have. And so that was a never-ending yep, don't have that one. And then what everyone's going to want is like dwarf comps and the Sumbo shell dwellers and stuff that's crazy rare, because it's crazy rare, right? That's what they say they want. They just don't want to pay the price. Joshua says, how often should my guppy fry eat? I feed finely crushed flake food twice a day. They're about 10 days old. That'd be just fine, Joshua. Twice a day is more than enough. And the more you feed them, the faster they can grow, assuming you keep water quality up. But it's not a race either, So feeding them twice a day, let's say they're ready to sell in 3 months. And if you feed them 10 times a day, maybe they're ready to sell in 2.5 months. So you save yourself 2 weeks of time, but it might have been twice the amount of work cleaning. So, kind of a balance there. Let's see. What's the best place to put a CO2 diffuser? I've heard to place it under the intake of a hang-on back, but I was told by a local food store that I may be wasting CO2 doing that. Any thoughts? My thoughts are CO2 is so cheap, why would you care? Out of all the things you buy in your hobby, refilling a CO2 cylinder is $15, and that's a 10-pound cylinder. Everyone focuses way too much on how efficient is this CO2, when the reality is if you were to gas off 10%, and you have to refill your cylinder every 11 months instead of every 12 months, that costs you about $1 something. Instead, you're going to go buy a reactor that costs you $60, and you're going to get that extra 10% efficiency, and the recoup time on that at saving $1 or $1.50 is what? So $1.50 into, so it's going to be 10, 20... 40 months. So that's going to be, a little more than 3 years to recoup your money. So I just don't think I don't think it's worth focusing on getting slightly more efficient. But that being said, I run my CO2 directly into the intake of all hang-on backs and canister filters on every single aquarium I run CO2 into, because the reality is cleaning the discs on diffusers and stuff like that, you're going to break them, you're going to spend time on them, time is money, and that's just my, if I'm evaluating over money, I'd much rather spend $15 once a year and replace CO2 than $15 every 14 months, but I got to buy a $10 diffuser every 8 months because they get clogged up and I can't get it clean enough and stuff like that. Let's see here. Question for Plants for Profit. All right, I'm already into this one. I'm growing my plants in a high-tech environment. When I bring to my local fish store, will I have to worry about them melting in their sales tank? I don't want to get a bad rep. Yes, and that's from Stokes Aquatics. You could run into that issue totally. So just like with fish, breeding fish for profit, I think part of it is make sure you set up your fish store for success. If you were selling to my store, I already inject CO2, I run highlight, stuff like that, it'd be no problem to transition in. But if they're not, what I would do personally is I would take all the trimmings from your tank and I would pot them in rock wool and everything, and I would transition them to tanks that are very similar to the tanks they keep. So if they keep a normal T8 bulb, you better be growing things that can live in that normal T8 bulb, and you can get it used to it before you take it to them. You can also put a root tab in the rock wool and give it a little bump. But when it comes to buying plants, we typically will only buy plants if they've been potted already, because we just don't want trimmings. Because at that point, we can grow them, right? You start growing a plant a foot a day, and I don't need someone else to do that. I can set up multiple tanks and just go in and cut, sell. We want someone to actually do the work, and that is root them out. So you take that cutting, you get it in rock wool, you start getting roots on it, boom, the customer likes to see that. Can you make money offering just one type of plants? Definitely, yeah. Some of the most profitable plants, if you're selling online, well, it doesn't have to be selling online, are Java Moss, Water Sprite, Duckweed. A lot of you are going, Water Sprite, it's so It's so easy. There's so much of it. And duckweed, oh god, it's like a plague. Yeah, but a lot of people want really, really, really easy stuff. And so you can make pretty darn good money doing that. And, all I can say is this. I've worked with lots of plant breeders. And they'll sell on Aquabid. They also sell to me, that type of thing. And they're always shocked that they're shipping out like water lettuce 10 to 1 any other plant. They've got buces, they've got, crips, they've got all the stuff that everyone wants. And yet what keeps getting reordered? Java moss, can't keep it in stock. Water lettuce, water sprite, anything that's used in breeding tanks or is labeled on the internet is very, very easy. Frogbit does well. Redroot floater does well. A lot of the things that reproduce fast, you would think, oh, because it grows so fast, there's too much competition. The reality is there's so many buyers, it doesn't matter. Let's see. Thoughts on breeding black Moscow and snowflake guppies. Are they popular in my store? Black Moscows are. I can definitely oversaturate the market after a while. And I'm not familiar with the snowflake guppy. So if it's a cool strain, I imagine it would sell well. But in general, for every, let's say, specific guppy I have, for every one of those I sell, I'll sell 20 to 30 just generic fancy guppies. Now, you're going to go, well, I get $10 a piece for the let's say, super red Delta guppies or a black Moscow or something like that. And I only get $4 for a genuine fancy guppy, but if I'm selling 20 to 30 to 1, you can see where the money's at. How to grow and profit from dwarf baby tears. I don't think there's that much of a way to do it. Right now, tissue culture, if you could do that cheaply enough, which you'd need a lab to do that. But in general, there's not enough buyers. That's why farms don't produce enough. Why does Florida Aquatic Nursery and some of these other farms run out all the time? Because they know that maybe every year only 30,000 pots of dwarf baby tears get sold. The problem is, on Anubias nana, there might be, 2.4 million pots of that sold. So that's the problem, is I don't think there's actually that much of a market on dwarf baby tears. I think actually you've got a better market on just normal baby tears. What are the best plants to grow for profit? I would say make the list just like I would advise you on fish. So can it live under low light? Yes, that's step number 1. Great. Does it have a color besides green? Oh, it does. Ka-ching! That's check mark number 2. So, most plants are going to be green. If we can get a different color, that's a good thing. So maybe Crypt Wendeti Bronze or Florida Sunset or, any of those. Dwarf Aquarium lilies, even though they're going to be hard to reproduce for you. But come up with criteria. Is it used by breeders? Yes. So Java moss, floating water sprite, guppy grass. And then, is it super duper fast growing? Yes. So even some things like hornwort grows a foot a day. But if you're selling a foot for $1 and you've got 10 tanks doing that, and every day you make $10, pretty soon that's $300 a month, and all you're doing is growing the hornwort. Meanwhile, you're keeping fish and growing other plants and doing things. It's free money. But yeah, make that checklist of what you think is going to be the most consumed. And then, just start from easiest to hardest, if you know that there's only 10 buyers for pink flamingo crypts in your area, don't start there. Start with, but unlimited amounts of Java moss, start there. And by the time you get Java moss down, water lettuce down, frogbit down, crypts down, some stem plants like octopus plant down, then maybe you go, okay, I'll start touching Blixa and things like that if it makes sense. But you probably ran out of time on the first time in tanks on the first 6 things you were doing. The other tip I have for growing plants, set up actual farms. Most people don't do that. So they have a planted tank and they go, look at this, look how pretty it is, I've got all these things. Plants don't thrive in that situation, just like fish don't thrive in that situation. You'd be better off having, okay, here's my 20-gallon tank, and it's only Java moss. Here's this 20-gallon tank, it's only Crypt parva. Here's this tank, it's only hornwort. So that way they're not doing battle with each other. Let's see, breeding bristlenose with rams and coolies, not going to work. You're just going to have, temperature problems there. You have, rams are going to eat bristlenose babies, coolie loaches. they want a whole different setup to breed. Yeah. How would you ship duckweed and frogbit? Most people just throw it in a Ziploc baggie and then ship it. Because it's so cheap and most people have unlimited amounts, if it wasn't to arrive alive, they just ship another one. They don't even care. So that's how most of that would get shipped out. What is the best way to deal with plants melting? All my plants are having new growth. Would it be a case of pruning off the melting part to promote growth? Nope. In general, leaving those leaves on is the best thing because they're providing food to the plant. So if you trim them all off, you're denying it of those nutrients, and so it's consuming them to put up new leaves. So mostly just a sit and wait is the best. Is CO2 vital for water plants, or is it just to limit not having it? It's okay. Well, CO2 is vital for plants. They need CO2, but I think your question is, do you have to inject CO2? And that is no, because there's already CO2 in your aquarium, just in water. That's just already there. But if you're asking if you have to inject CO2, no. Some plants do require a higher level, and I'm not even convinced they need a higher level. I actually think they just use it up faster, so the water actually runs out faster. But I would say, out of all the plants available, 80 to 90% don't need CO2 injection. Yeah, do me a favor. Go ahead and like and share if you want. Hang out, having a good old time. Okay, here we go. Why does my water sprite turn brown on the bottom but has a bunch of bright new green growth on the top? Couple of scenarios, maybe. If the plant is brand new to you, so if I buy a plant from the farm, it's going to come to me, but it was grown out of the water. It was literally grown hydroponically up above water. If I throw that into the water, the leaves down below are going to turn brown and get consumed, and you're going to get new growth out of the top, and it's going to convert. If you've had this plant going on for a long time, a lot of times water sprite, it's shadowing itself. So as it grows and gets bushier, right, it's shadowing the bottom part, and those leaves are dying off because they're not photosynthesizing enough. Those are the most likely things. Without seeing pictures and knowing more info, I'm not sure I could help you much more. Can cory cats and shrimp breed together? Technically, yes. I've been able to do it, mostly because you're going to collect the Corydora eggs anyway, but you need a lot of cover to get the shrimp to survive. So if it's so dense that Corydoras are having trouble getting into all the nooks and crannies, then the shrimp will make it. Let's see here. So Ivan, that's a question, the Beanimal overflow system. If you want to ask that question later, I'll answer that, because it's not really related to what we're talking about, but it is first time anyone's ever asked me about that overflow system. Where can I get starter breeding fish when I only have a PetSmart near me and the closest breeder is 4 hours away? I would go to PetSmart. So like one of my favorite fish in my fish room, the Variatus platies, originally started from PetSmart. I got them from PetSmart, kept them going, worked with them, and yeah, PetSmart's at the end of the day, a fish is a fish. Now, are they in worse condition at a PetSmart? Yeah, but if you know that going in, you can hedge your bets. Be ready with meds. Be ready to give them that TLC. And there's like a lot of people that look at guppies. A lot of good guppies go through PetSmarts, honestly. But so does a lot of disease. That's the other problem. Also, you can just order online, order from Aquabid or something like that. You're going to pay for the shipping, and it's not cheap to get decent, good breeding stock. But the reality is, if you do everything right, it should pay for itself, in theory. What do I do if I have an overload of guppy fry? I would feed them to another fish. So if you were just have way too many guppies and they're not selling fast enough and stuff like that, maybe you feed them to angelfish, which are then having babies, and you can sell those. Or maybe you just unload them. Like if I had way too many fish, maybe I'd feed them to some of my turtles or a bigger fish so that they get the protein and stuff like that. Let's see. My Java fern's dying on the middle, but it's totally fine on the outside. What's happening? It's hard to say without pictures. Those are kind of hard to um, diagnose. Why don't people breed the freshwater nerite snail? I don't know of a freshwater nerite snail, so I know some that tolerate fresh, like the olive nerite do really well in fresh water, but I don't know that they full on reproduce in fresh water. So I don't know the answer to that question. Do you have to treat water you put in water plants in like AquaSafe? Do you have to treat water you put water plants in like AquaSafe? For a chlorine you don't have to, but I don't have chloramine, so that could be a different thing, but typically chlorine's just going to gas off, and so the reason like we take chlorine out of water is because it burns the gills on fish, and plants aren't going to have that problem. But I don't have chloramine in my water, and for all I know, that could be a train wreck, so I'm not sure on that one. Thoughts for best breeding setup for LDA 08? Probably just smaller caves, a nice power head blowing across the front of the caves, and getting some males and females. I think that's the hardest part. What's the best hard water plant? In my opinion, it's the African fern, Bulbitis. Also, you can almost always sell in limited amounts of it. It's great. Let's see here. Are mollies profitable? From David. I think they are. Yeah, they grow relatively quick. I think they're actually decently profitable, and I think they're decently easy to sell to a store, because most stores, myself included, have a hard time getting a hold of true freshwater mollies. And so if you bring them good-looking mollies, they're super robust, and you give them that first batch, and they sell them well, and they didn't lose a single one, they would be dumb not to come back to you and go, hey, how much you want for more mollies? Those did really well for us. So I think they're a good one. That being said, a lot of times people only breed, let's say, black leer tail mollies or Dalmatians. You really need to vary up the colors and stuff like that, because if you're only making black mollies, the average consumer is only going to buy maybe a pair or a trio, and that's kind of a problem. You need the whole rainbow available so they can pick and choose what they like. My frog bet's melting. I'm using your Easy Green. What's the best way to make it succeed? They're in a 10-gallon tank, and I'm using a shop light. In my experience, frog bit has never done that well for me. I mean, I can keep it alive, but I find it wants a lot of light. And yeah, I do really well with it outside. I've even overwintered it outside. And in aquariums, I find it to be much harder than even like redroot floater and stuff like that for me. I don't know why. That's just one of the few plants that maybe my water structure or something like that is just not conducive for. So it's hard for me to help you when I struggle with the plant also, but in my experience, lots of light is what it wants. Let's see. What's the best way to acclimate Tropheus debosii babies to a new tank? Recently I had a few die almost instantly. Tank water is fine, hard, alkaline, no ammonia, temp's perfect. Well, I mean, if it was matching the other tank perfectly, there should have been no problem. I never acclimate fish. I plop and drop everything always. So that's my advice there, that, you know, it's kind of one of those weird things when someone says, my water's perfect, and then they say, a fish died. It's like, well, those two statements can't go together, typically. So something about that water they didn't like, or something about the transfer process they didn't like. What I mean by that is either that water had a contaminant in it, or maybe you kept them out of the water for too long, or maybe as you were milking the mouth because they're mouth brooders, for those of you who don't know, maybe you like bent their spines because they were getting, you know, you lost hold of the lip and it shut down and bent the spine or something. But I would examine the process because, you know, in a vacuum, perfect water and moving baby fish should work just fine. And even less than ideal water, killing something instantly is very hard to do, honestly. Like, it's, you know, if you told me it died a week later, there's 100 different scenarios, but dying almost instantly usually is either a toxin or something went horribly wrong during the transfer process. Happy the Cat says, "Hi Corey, what would the best substrate for plants? Currently I have gravel and I'm not sure that's good or not. Depends on the plant, but in my experience, gravel does just fine. If you're really trying to set up a farm, I would still say use gravel. Mostly because you're going to use so many liquid fertilizers and stuff like that, and if you were really setting up a farm, you're going to burn through, let's say, ADA soils, eco-completes, that type of thing. It's going to eat up so much of your profits that I'm not sure it'll be worthwhile. That being said, something like eco-complete, it'll help absorb the fertilizer, so that could be useful forever. But soils in general, I find, are not worth the investment personally. Can I explain more on how I'd set up a plant farm tank? Sure. First thing, invest in an insane amount of light. Maybe not insane, but lighting is almost a determining factor besides fertilizer, right? And fertilizer is really easy. You just grab your bottle and you're like, here's more fertilizer, more food, more food. CO2 helps, because if you're giving it unlimited light and unlimited food, the last thing it's going to want is unlimited CO2. The shorter the tank, the more your light goes. So what I mean by that is every 4 inches on an aquarium takes twice as much light. So if your tank is 10 inches tall or it's 14 inches tall, the 14-inch tall tank needs twice as many fixtures or light as the 10-inch tall tank. So shallower tanks typically work well. That being said, depending on the farm, let's say you're doing a stem plant farm, maybe you've got a tank that's 18 inches and then it's a 40 breeder, and you put a piece of tape across the halfway mark on that tank, right? Then you just cut everything at that tape every week and replant. And so that way you've always got your strong root base that's growing, and it just grows towards the top. It reaches the top, you go in and trim, and you just go in and trim, and you go in and trim. And that's how you're going to make all your stem plants. And then maybe you kind of take them out to another tank and root them out before you sell them. Yeah, a lot of people sell plants unrooted. I just think that's unfair in my opinion, especially to new people in the hobby. They don't know what they're doing. If you were to get them roots first, you're making sure your customer's going to be so much more successful. My guppies breed great in a 10-gallon, and then when I moved them to a 20, they stopped. Why is that? The most likely scenario I can think of is there's more open space in the 20-gallon, and so the fry are getting chased down easier. In a confined space, typically it's more cramped, there's more hiding spots, there's, it's less easy to get around. That's the most likely thing, is when someone goes from very dense 10-gallon, lots of plants, you take everything, you put it into a 20-gallon, it's way less dense. So that's my theory without knowing more. Let's see. Chloramines used to prevent gassing off. Chlorines will cause an ammonia spike that can cause issue with bacterial cycle and affecting plant growth rates. I could believe that, but the problem is, won't the chlorine only, or the ammonia only be separate, like the bond broken if you were to use a dechlorinator? Yeah, I'm not sure about that, because I can pour a lot of ammonia into a planted tank and it just gobbles it up. In fact, a lot of the very high light fertilizers just use urea as the nitrite source or nitrate source, and so you're literally just pouring in ammonia, and that's the same thing, and if you're not running any fish at all, you can just use Miracle Grow, and Miracle Grow, it runs a lot of ammonia in it, and it does well. I mean, that's what I did that for a long time with pond plants. Like, let's say I've got a container of water hyacinth and irises and stuff like that you're selling to go into ponds. You just put Miracle Grow in it, the liquid stuff, and it feeds them really well. And that's why aquatic plant substrates and stuff leach off so much ammonia, is they just use ammonia to do it. That being said, chloramines may totally destroy plants. I'm just not sure the ammonia is what's going to do it. And I think it's all proportional, right? 100% water change versus 10%, that type of thing. How do you grow plants fast without CO2? High light and fertilizer. you know. So something like most stem plants and most stem plants, you could probably grow at 3 inches a day with highlight and good fertilizer. Hornwort will still grow a foot a day without CO2. Um, any of the floating plants, really, they're going to grab their CO2 out of the air, and so they don't even have that problem. Yeah. Do I ever buy guppies from local sellers? Not a whole lot. I do. I used to have relationships worked out where we did quite a bit, but a lot of them are just doing it for fun, and most times the local sellers aren't breeding strains that the public actually wants to buy. They're breeding strains they enjoy, but a lot of times, like the purple Moscows and stuff like that, they just don't sell because they've got green in them, and half the public's going, "You called that a purple Moscow? It's actually green. How dare you? You're trying to pull one over on me?" And a lot of times they don't grow them big enough. Like, part of the problem is my guppies in my store that I've raised are giant, and then a locally bred one at 3 months might be smaller, so they just don't sell as well. But yeah, I do work with people, and I have bought and I will buy more from people. And in general, I need you to bring them in like, okay, I've got 30, and so that's 15 pairs, and they're all this big, and they're all perfect, and they're all ready to rock and roll. Not like, well, I think I've got 6 pairs. Like, yeah, my meds and stuff like that, maybe not even worth it. And if it's not a strain I don't need, that becomes a problem. So, but yeah, I want to work with more local breeders, and I enjoy it. I've got, let's say a handful of local breeders that, I love talking fish with them. I love buying their fish. I love supporting them. I love paying them what they need to keep it going. And then I've got 50 people who I dread to interact with because they don't get it, right? They're too focused on what can I get for this fish as opposed to did they sell. Like the breeders I really work with, they call up and just go, hey, how are they selling? Are they doing well? Can I do anything for you? That type of thing. Where the other people is, how much money can I get today for this stuff? I'm going to the next store right after this. And it's like, oh, geez, So yeah, what plant food and fertilizer do I use? Mostly I use Easy Green. We do use a little bit of Flourish because we used to get it for free, kind of as a store program, but we don't really get that anymore. We changed the program we were doing. I think that's, and I use a lot of root tabs. Yeah. But mostly my own stuff because I know what it is and it's so much more potent. But you can use other stuff. If you had other stuff laying around, use it. Yeah. Is a Phoenix Stingray good for a low-tech planted tank, including low-tech plants that I sell? It could be. It all depends on the depth of the tank. But most likely, yes. That's why I use so many Stingrays. Yeah, I would say order one up. In my opinion, it's hard to be disappointed on a Stingray because they're so cheap that the light to dollar ratio I think is amazing, and I've sold insane amounts of Stingrays at this point, like a lot, and I think I've only ever had 2 that didn't work. One didn't work right out of the box, and that was like the first month we ever got them, which was like a long time ago now. And then I had one go bad that I think an employee got wet, but I can't even prove that. So they've just been rock steady. I've never lost one in my fish room. I've only ever lost one at my store, and I've only ever had one DOA in a box ever. And that's really good for the amount that I've sold. So I love Phoenix Stingrays. How do you analyze what is best fish to breed? And do I talk to the local fish store before breeding them or after with a sample? In my opinion, I think you figure out what fish you're going to breed after doing a lot of work and then bringing them the sample. Because if someone comes into my store and asks me what to breed, I'm always short with them and I say, anything I'm selling in my store is what you need to be breeding. And then they go, well, what do you mean? And it's like, well, if you want to make Cardinal Tetras, great, I'll buy them from you instead of some random person across the world. Or you want to make Corridoras, or you want to do Angels, or you want to do this, you want to do that. But what I might not tell you is here's how many I sell, here's how much I'm paying for them, here's this and this and this. So you got to do some research, because it doesn't do me as in the local fish store, any good to go, oh yeah, breed me some arowanas. And you go, oh, well, I don't have giant tanks and ponds to do that. So it's easier for you to come with me to me and go, hey, I've got this, this, and this, and they're all really good, and they're bulletproof, and they're ready to go. Are you interested? That is easy for me to take action on versus, every day someone emails me, comes into the store, calls, and says, what do you want me to breed? And the reality is, anything we're already selling, I'd much rather buy from someone that makes it easy and I enjoy doing business with than someone I don't know. And I think everyone would be that way. If you'd rather have your grandmother make you dinner if she makes dinner just as good as the chain restaurant you're going to. But if your grandma doesn't want to make dinner, then you're going to go to the chain restaurant. And it's the same thing in my store. I'd rather buy from someone local and support you and support the hobby than random other person I have no connection with. Let's see. I myself don't use Metricide when dosing. It's I believe Metricide 13 is made of glutaraldehyde. Is that right? I believe you dilute it down. But I don't play with those strong chemicals just because I don't even use Excel, so there's that. Shrimp are some of the best as well as guppies. Yep, I would agree. Best fish to breed for money. It does depend on your locale. If you're in cichlid country, it might be yellow lab cichlids might be the best bang for the buck, or ACI, or Demisoni, or you might just be like, oh, there's no one doing bristlenose plecostomus in this state? Man, time for me to start up the factory. Also, it depends on, let's say you are in cichlid town, but there's already 5 guys doing yellow labs and ACIs and red zebras else is playing with. So you got to analyze the market and figure out what's going to pay off for you, and hopefully it's something you actually want to keep. Let's see here. Breeding pearl gouramis? Ooh, I don't know what the question was. Is it how to do it? I'm trying to think here. Well, I'll see if that comes up later. What do I think is the most important criteria for you to sell shrimp in your store? I'm assuming the general public doesn't care about the grading on a crystal shrimp. That's right. In fact, I don't even carry crystal shrimp at my store because the average person, here's what they do when it comes to shrimp. They go, derp, 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 derp. I'm going to read online. Ooh, cherry shrimp. Those are nice. I'm going to buy some. They buy some cherry shrimp and they go, hey, they didn't die overnight. All right. I've now had cherry shrimp for 3 weeks. I'm going to get some of those crystal shrimp because I've been doing well with the cherry shrimp. They buy 6 of them. The next day, they're all dead. And then they come back into the store and they're pissed. They go, why'd you sell me such horrible shrimp? And then you find out they're running 7.8 pH and it was a total train wreck. Those crystal shrimp had no chance. So I don't even sell crystal shrimp unless you special order them. The average person wants color and they want cheap. So, a really shrimp, so a red really shrimp is just a bad looking cherry shrimp to 99 out of 100 people that ever walk into a local fish store. Primary colors are good. Ooh, I get to keep a red one, a blue one, a yellow one, a green one, a black one. Those primary colors sell. But when you go, oh, look at this one. See it? Yeah, it's a little bit lighter blue. How many people are in the chat right now? How many people? I can't see anymore. So we have 417 people in this chat. Not a single one of you is the people I'm talking about. Anyone who's in a live stream, you're actually fish people. So you're in the 1% of people that go, hey, that looks cool. Whereas the general public, and what I mean the general public is they just sailed in out of a PetSmart 10 minutes ago, walking in going, I've got my first aquarium. I want to buy that, and that. That's the majority of most pet store sales. And it's people that just want to enjoy things. They want to look at it. They have no intention of breeding it. They just, they're happy if things aren't dying. And that's what sells the most. And so, in general, people want things that are pretty. They want them to look cool. They want to put way too many of them in a tank. They want them to be very cheap. They want them to be hardy. You'd be surprised if you worked at a local fish store how many times a day someone walks in and goes, can you show me the fish that don't die? And you're just going, huh? Like, fish aren't designed to die, but that's the experience they're having. So the what the general public values is way different than what we value here in this chat. We're going, oh my God. Like the other day, I was nerding out on shrimp, looking at LR Brett's. He's got some wide-eyed shrimp. That was pretty cool. He's got some other variants coming out I've never seen before. I think they're cool, and yet I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole in my store because they won't make a cent for me. Not a cent. No one would see on that cherry shrimp that it's got white eyes instead of black. They don't. It would go right over the head. They have no idea. So, but from me, I go, hey, that's cool. And you guys would go, hey, that's cool. But the average public, they wouldn't even notice it. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, I'm going to scroll down. I'm trying to catch up. Got a few minutes left. Trying to help as many people as I can. Just reading, catching up here. When you're growing out fry and you're feeding 5 times a day, do I leave the light on 24 hours a day and feed equal time intervals? I don't. I typically have a day and night cycle, mostly because it saves me power. That's a big thing of, you know, you start getting a power bill at the end of the month and you're going, okay, I spent $400 on power. Well, if the light's only on 8 hours, sweet, I'm only spending $260 on power now. That really cuts into profits a lot of times. There have been some times when raising guppies, for instance, get the water to go green. I'll leave the light on 24 hours a day, and that's kind of a growth thing I'm trying to do, but not on all the tanks for sure. And you'd want to do it with a specific reason. And in general, I tend not to do it. Is there really a huge difference between fire red shrimp and cherry shrimp? No, there's not. To the 400 people in this chat, yes. To the average public, not at all. And here's how I know. Because I watch videos all the time, and I watch people say, look at my fire red painted shrimp, look at my sakura shrimp, look at my whatever. And they have no idea what they have. And here's the big problem. Let's say you buy the best group of painted fire red shrimp you've ever seen. You bring in 10 adults. Man, they're good. You paid $50 a piece. They're the best ones you've ever seen, right? And then you breed them. And then you're selling them as the best painted fire red shrimp you've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. I paid $50 a piece. They're amazing. Except what's coming out, 1 out of every 50 of those shrimp is actually looking like as good a quality as the adult is. And but you're still selling them, and that's why a lot of places sell their shrimp really small, so you can't judge the quality yet. So even though they can show you the parents, what you get is a far cry. Think about it just like dogs, right? When you go and you buy a dog, and this is buying a dog versus adopting a dog, which I've never bought a dog, but I've adopted dogs. But if you're going to a high-end breeder, you want to meet the adults. Like, okay, here's mom, here's dad. They're nice. Ooh, look at the qualities. They're good for the breed, whatever it is, right? Then you look at the babies, right? Like the pups. And you go, wait a second. This one's black. This one's white. This one's calico. This one's boy. This one's girl. This one's got a patch on its eye. It's got all these different things. Why aren't they direct clones? They're not. And the shrimp are the same way. So even though the parents are amazing, it doesn't mean what's coming out. And so generally what happens is this. You get your, top tier shrimp and you sell them out as, call them whatever you want, red, purple, bumblebee, goby, shrimpies, right? And the next person makes a video, I got red, purple, bumblebee, go shrimpies. But they don't even look the same anymore, And that's the problem. So in my opinion, cherry shrimp are cherry shrimp. You have shrimp that are really good in color. You have some that are painted fire red. You've got like the Bloody Marys, which I learned at LR Brett's fish room that means the color's not in the shell. It's more in the body, so it's a different way you look at it. That being said, if I took 15 different cherry shrimp, between painted, fire reds, normals, Bloody Marys, stuff like that, and I put them in the same tank, and I showed them to my grandma, she would say, yep, you have shrimp. But if I take the same thing and I go, oh, here's a blue velvet, here's a cherry red, here's a fire yellow, and here's a crystal shrimp, my grandma would go, ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that one. because they look different to her. And that's the general public. So that's my experience on those. Let's see here. Are these Japanese koi behind me? Nope, these are just fancy goldfish. So I'm at the 1 hour mark. I'm going to open it up to any questions at the moment. Joel says, what are your plans for the Christmas live streams? Any more marathons on the way? Yeah, that one's a marathon. I plan to go 8 hours on Christmas. And my family, luckily, we celebrate Christmas Eve night. And so most of Christmas for me is just laying around, hopefully reading like a book I got, or trying on clothes I got, or just eating good food. And I figure I can do that all with you guys, because for my whole life, the way my family's always done it, everything happens between like 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. And then you've got 11 a.m. till bedtime that's pretty much binge watching A Christmas Story or something equivalent on TBS or whatever it is. And everyone's just eating candy and all that kind of stuff. And then pretty soon you're going, oh my God, why'd I eat the entire chocolate orange? I feel like I'm going to puke. And then you lay on the couch for a bit, you kind of snooze, you wake up, and then you eat some more food. And I figure when you're zoning in and out of your diabetic coma from all the candy and food you're eating, you could be listening to me talk about tacos. So, how much do I think albino bristlenose plecos are worth? Depends on the size. We buy them anywhere from $1 to $6 a piece, depending on size at the store. Let's see. Feeder guppies, good or bad? I think they're a good thing. Profitable? Ooh, that would be rough. It's a hard thing. Christmas gifts too? Yeah, I've got... So I'll say the idea, and don't hold my feet to the fire, because I have no idea if I can pull it off yet, but I think there's an app that I can integrate into the store that's going to let you guys participate, and then I can give away a bunch of stuff, and my store gets rewarded for it too. So I'm hoping that, like, if you make a purchase, it'll give you, 5 points or 5 entries. And then if you are a subscriber already, it's worth 30 points and like all these things, right? And then it'll pick winners at random and stuff like that. I hope to have some discounts for you. I mean, I hope it to be, it's the Christmas extravaganza. But we'll see what actually comes out, because I do have family in town. I do have taxes to do. I do have all these things happening. And so I usually plan 100 things and then hope I can get 80 of them done, and then that usually means you guys got to enjoy 20 of them. So what lights would make my cichlids color pop the most? A Phoenix Monster Ray, in my opinion, does that the best. Quality control's a little spotty on them, though. I only sell the 2-footers because they tend to be bulletproof. 3-foot and 4-foot, I have had problems. Is General Cure safe to use in a planted tank? I've heard some people say they've got meltback in the plants. I've never experienced the meltback myself, but whenever you use a med, you can always have some problems. It's hard to say. My tank is 25 gallons. Would doubling my FERT dosing be okay? I'm currently running 2 milliliters a week. Would 4 milliliters be okay? If you're dosing Easy Green, the easiest way is test your water for nitrates. If you're running out of nitrates, dose more Easy Green. If you're not, you probably are okay, unless you have a really high fish load, which is skewing those results. Let's see. Going to set up a 20 long to breed glass cats. What would you go about breeding them? I don't know. I know it's very difficult for most people, and they don't travel very well. I don't even bring them to my store that much. I know the African glass cat is easier, that the brackish water glass cat is easier to breed, but I don't have any experience playing with the glass cats. What size can my fry platies go with my angels? Depends on how big the angels are, but I would want to see them at least an inch, at least. If I was going to sell to a local fish store, what is the best way to approach the owner about it? For me personally, like, I'll use myself as an example. call the store or email and set up an appointment. Be like, hey, what's your slowest day that you'll be there so that I can come and talk to you? I want to bring some fish and show you and see if you're interested in buying them. Most people have a full-time job, though, and they want to do it on a Saturday or Sunday, and I just can't do it. And so then they're like, can you meet there at 8 o'clock in the morning? Like, nope, I got to do something. Oh, can you do this? Like, nope. So try and get in there. And from my research, for me, Thursday was always my slowest day and still is my slowest day. So maybe Thursday's a good day to do it. But call and just ask and go, hey, I've got these fish. I want to get some money for them. I am breeding them. Are you interested? Do you want to meet up and do a 10-minute thing and just see where we're at? And just be honest, And they might say no, not interested. And then they're not interested. But all you can do is try, right? What fish would I not recommend for beginners to sell? What is the best way to get rid of snails? What would I not recommend to sell? Because it's selling, that's the weird part. Something that the end consumer is not going to have good luck with. So what does that mean? That might mean, let's say I was breeding albino topaz guppies and I was running in a UV sterilizer tank, and they're so fragile that when I sell them to the store, they barely keep them alive. And then when they sell them to the customer, they're alive, but then they burn out 3 weeks later. That's what I wouldn't want to be doing, because that eventually that's going to work back to your reputation of, it seems like their stuff's always dying. And then what's the best way to get rid of snails? In my opinion, using, let's say, like a pea puffer or a loach, maybe dwarf chain loaches. I still want to do some tests with something like cupramine and silicone long term, but I haven't been able to run those. How do you think I will be able to breed and sell Lamprologus multifasciatus multis? Because I don't know how they sell well where I live. Probably terribly, honestly. You won't make much money on them. I've always lost money on them, always, and I can make infinite of them, and I own shelldwellers.com, and I can't even make money. So I would say that, if you want to breed them because they're fun, but know that there's a lot of other fish that would make more profit. Unless you just happen to have a local group that's really into them, but know that it's a get in and get out thing. You're selling a fish that other people are going to breed, so you're going to flood the market, then they're going to flood the market back, and no one's going to sell any of them. So I would, get in, enjoy them, get back out. Bottom of the stems of wisteria plants are rotting. Any ideas of what's going on? Maybe not getting enough light. Are they in sand? Sand can cause that sometimes. If it's just in gravel. Do you have roots? Like, is there a good root base going? Or is it just like the stems you're just planting? Did you buy it as a leaded weighted bunch? A lot of times they're already going to rot no matter what. Not quite sure. How much are my red, yellow guppy fry worth? Probably, if they're still fry, a nickel. If they're, ready to sell size, maybe 50 cents, maybe $1. Depends on how good they look. It's kind of like asking how much a fish is worth is kind of like asking how much is a used car worth. Well, a lot of factors on that. Like, where do you live? Do people like that? There's all these things that go into it. Like, oh, you own a Lamborghini, but it's hot pink? Already it's going to be worth less than one that was red or black or something like that. So there's a lot of things that actually go into it. Let's see here. Do I ship to Arizona? We do ship dry goods and plants, yeah. How big of a tank would you need to keep a silver arowana or Florida gar? In my opinion, a tank that's at least 3 feet front to back. How's my breeding pair of angels doing? Terrible. Boy killed girl, so I've got just a big fat male now. Remember we were watching him eat those eggs? I came in one day and he'd killed her like the next day. So I've got just a lone male walking around. Well, not walking obviously, but let's see. Potted plants were for me for the wisteria. Let me scroll up here. Where'd that go? They were in great shape when I got them. They're in gravel. Jules, I'm just confirming here. We are dosing fertilizer, yes? Because if we're not, that's a problem. And then my next question would be this: are you getting new growth on the top? Because my potted plants, we kind of went over this earlier. I'm going to order them from a farm, and maybe I get them and they're this tall, and maybe when I send them to you, they're this tall. All of that growth is what I grew and is grown underwater. It's not uncommon for that to maybe rot away the leaves. Usually the stem doesn't, though. But you could always just trim them and plant them down, because when a stem plant, you just take that part, plant it, you're good to go. But definitely, Jules, if you want to make a post on the Aquarium Co-op page, I will get to the bottom of it with you, or you can send me an email or just a message through the website. I definitely want to try and see what's going on there and offer you any advice I can, and I think a picture or two and a couple more questions one-on-one would sort this out a little faster. So if you guys haven't noticed, by the way, I'm doing a lot of stuff with my phone where I'll do a video reply. It's working out a lot better than typing, because typically when I'm typing, I'll say like, what's the pH? How's this going? And this. And then I stop. But because it takes a little bit longer to type on a phone, but if I was filming it, I can ask all these questions, keep going and 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 going, boom. I can offer way more. So hopefully that's helping and you guys are liking it. Plants that do well in a tank with sand, in my opinion, bulb plants do pretty good because you can sit them on top of the sand, they grow into it. Anubias, bulbitis, I've had good luck with guppy grass. Vallisneria can do okay, takes a little while to get established. I know there's more, but I don't want to spend more time on it. Some of your plants are rotting on the top. Don't know what to do. That's a rough one, Nate. A lot of times, depending on the type of plant, but if it's a stem plant, that might mean you don't have enough light or maybe not enough fertilizer. If it's like an Amazon sword, maybe those are just the big leaves melting back and you're going to get new leaves or submerged growing. It's hard to know. Converting a silver-tipped catfish to brackish tank, any tips? Just take it slow, like maybe do a 10% water change each week, but each week change it back in with the salinity you want. So maybe you're going to keep it at 0.04 or maybe 0.01 and just slowly do it over time. How long have I kept goldfish for? I've pretty much kept goldfish on and off for the last 10, 12 years, I would say. Yeah. Is it better to float water wisteria versus planting it? That's a good question. I like that question a lot, actually. I wouldn't say one is better, but let's say, so that person that's having trouble with their wisteria, if it was a lighting issue and it floats, it's really close to the light, it's going to get a lot of light, and it'll send its roots down, but it'll stay alive, and you might get really good growth on it. So sometimes the lighting issue, floating, because we already established every 4 inches is twice as much light, right? So if you plant a plant this tall down here, and your light is up here, if it was to float, it's going to be really close to that light, and it's going to get like 5 times as much light as it was getting. So I like it planted, but it's also great as a floating plant, just as a gnarled mess if you're breeding something in there. My jungle val keeps sending off runners, and then they float up. I replant them, but I'm not sure. Okay, but hold on. This is a sign I need to cut this soon. I replant them, but sure enough, after 1 or 2 more, they pop up again. I have sand substrate. Any tips for keeping them down? That's the problem, Ryan. That's the problem with the sand substrate. Is that what they want to do is they want to just make it really easy to burrow in. Sand's not easy. Gravel, when you look at gravel, because of the way it stacks, it's like stacking these spoons right here, right? If you just throw them there, they don't stack very well. There's all these cracks. Well, the plant kind of does this thing. It kind of goes boop, and it looks for a crack and goes, great, let me put roots out. And I'm held. And then it goes boop, and it's held. But if it hits sand, which is like my hand, it's going to go doing, 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 and it's not going to be able to put the roots down. It just keeps bouncing off. Same like when it hits glass. It just goes, Same problem. So you want that coarser substrate so it can get in there and expand those roots as the anchor system to hold it down. So you can actually just grow Vallisneria floating. That's how most of the farms do it. They never plant it. They just let it float, and it just propagates the same way it's doing for you right now. It's just going, oh yeah, it's making a chain to nowhere, unfortunately. So So yeah, if you haven't already, go buy an aquarium co-op spoon. These things are super handy. I use them all the time for explaining plant things. That's a new use. Bucket fish list to own. I always forget. I know it's fly river turtle. Anableps are on there. We found that one last time. Anableps I still want to do. Are goldfish the most profitable fish to breed? Definitely not. I don't know what the most is. For me, it's guppies. Depends on where you live. How many Arandas in a 75? I would say 3, maybe 4, depending on water changes. We should talk shrimp lineage and lines sometimes. The problem is, I don't know where a lot of it started. I would say you are way more well-versed, LR Bretts, in the shrimp world than I am. I've bred a lot of shrimp, and I've been in the hobby, and I've kind of done what you've done, but I got out of it once I kind of got into owning a store and stuff like that, and I never really got into the, the foreign shrimp groups and stuff, so yeah. Is it okay to use root tabs and easy green at the same time? Yes. Which WoW class did I play? I played like everything, right? I'm a guy, so just like I've kept like lots of fish, I played everything, but I think the thing I played the most was Undead Warrior. Got 2 fear breaks, kind of OP when you're doing the high warlord grind. That was back before they, made it like, I think everyone gets like fear breaks now, right? Like, it used to be just humans and undead, but, let's see, what else? Any tips for carpeting? Lots of light helps carpet. How's it going, George? How profitable are guppies? Would it be more profitable to sell goldfish or guppies online? Online, maybe goldfish. Maybe. But guppies are pretty profitable. Because they're so easy to raise. And they take so little care, too. Any experience breeding crevensis? Yes. I know you have albino crevensis. Wondering how long to keep my 4-week fry in a 29-gallon with the parents. Typically, you can keep them forever. They're really good colony breeders, but it's it'll make it harder for them to breed again if that's your goal. Let's see here. What kind of higher level college fish class did you take to increase my knowledge? None. It's all real life experience / working in a fish store. I have taken a couple of like fish disease classes down with Dr. Tim Miller Morgan, who leads the classes at Oregon State University, which has the only tropical ornamental fish program that I know of. But there's not a lot that college can actually teach you. It's kind of the reason why like fish biologists and marine biologists, what I was meant to say, why marine biologists make such bad fish keepers. They know so much and yet know nothing about actually keeping something in an aquarium. The difference is it might be like going to school and college for agriculture, farming, all that kind of stuff, and then going, well, how good of a cook are you? You can be a terrible cook and still know exactly how to grow all that stuff and how it works and how the amino acids in the food break down and all that kind of stuff, and yet you don't know how to cook. Could discus and rainbow fish live together in a heavily planted 65? Technically, it can be done, George, but you'll probably get the rainbow fish stealing the lion's share of food of the discus, and that'll make it hard. Yeah. Could I keep 5 pictus in a 20-gallon long? Not for very long. They're going to get way too big, in my opinion. Let's see. Did you do any non-fish study at college, Corey? You strike me as a computer science type. You guessed it correct, Joel. I went to school for network administration. I did not finish. I'm a quitter. Mostly because I realized I hated it. And here's the problem is I have very little patience when it comes to people and computers. And that's a problem when you're going to be working with computers, right? So I'm the classic IT guy, and I don't remember, I think it was an SNL skit where the guy just every time screamed move and just moved the person to fix the problem. That's me. And, I did learn some very, very, very valuable skills in college. And they're not what you think, right? So the best class I ever took in college was keyboarding. And I know you're going to go, what? I use that skill every day of my life. The fact that I can type 90 to 100 words per minute, that's how I answer all your guys' questions all day long. I write memos. I talk with wholesalers. That's why I want everything to always funnel back into email or some kind of text format for me, because I can type so fast with so much accuracy. And so you guys are right now, you're going, this guy's making spelling mistakes and crap and wrong words all the time. That's because I'm doing it on my phone in bed in the morning. My goal every morning is to start the day fresh. So I get up at 8 and I just start answering, right? I'm answering the emails, I'm answering the questions on the website, I'm answering Facebook, and I'm answering YouTube. That takes about an hour of me just pounding away on it. Then I take a shower, then I get my day going. But yeah, network administration. And so the thing I learned with network administration, I had a great teacher, right? Great teacher. He was teaching, like, for the degree I had to take, like, Computers 101, right? And clearly he knew that me and a few other people in the class, like, this was retarded. Like, it was just bad. Like, here's how a mouse works. Here's how this works, whatever. And so we spent the whole time racing who could install Windows 2000 the fastest. And so we were making custom boot disks and things like that. Every program we could get out there that wouldn't have to install, so that it would install faster, and we made a game of it, right? But the important part of that class, which it did teach me something very, very, very important to my life that I will use forever, and it was his whole thing on, because he taught like a few courses, right? But the whole premise of his whole thing was, what I teach you today will be useless tomorrow. What I'm going to teach you is how to find the answer for yourself. And what he did is he would just keep, so while he was teaching, like, here's how to use a mouse, stuff like that to me, or not to me, but to others, to the advanced group, he would put up a problem on the board and he'd be like, find the answer to this. And the goal was always to find it in forums, find it in Google, that type of thing. And so he basically pit us against each other, who could find it the fastest, right? And so you learn critical skills, like, let's say you want to learn about guppies, right? If I type in fancy guppy into Google, lots of stuff comes up. It might be PetSmart selling it. It might be random website, blah, blah, blah. So to jump ahead, what do? I instantly type in fancy guppy forum. So that's going to bring up the word fancy guppy, but relative to forums. And I'm going to get real user data there. And then that's how you find the answer to problems. You put in the search term, and then where you want to read about the answer. Do I want to read about it on a forum? Do I want to read about it on a website? Do I want to read about it only from this help center? Limit all the responses to that. And it taught me how to find information very quickly, and that was the best thing I ever learned, because he was genuine and he was honest in telling me, I can teach you how, like right now, we can teach you how to install Windows 2000 wicked super quick. You'll know it like the back of your hand, and by the time you're done with this degree, it's obsolete. Everything I teach you today is obsolete. And that was the technology program. And I found that to be true. Like in high school, I took Pascal, C++, programming languages, because we had to learn a foreign language, and I got to hack my way through that and use computer languages instead of learning language. Now I'm kicking myself. Wish I would have learned Chinese. Actually, I'd be a powerhouse in the business world if I knew Chinese. But anyway, that's a look into my life, I guess, that I haven't talked too much about. I do want to answer this one because I said I'd answer it earlier. I'm setting up a Beanimal overflow system. When the tank is up and running, I will not have access to the glass box with plumbing on the back. Am I in a world of hurt not having access to it easily? Alright, so let me explain what it is, because I would wager a good portion of people that are going to watch this have no idea what that means. The overflow system we're talking about, typically what that means is, so an overflow, water overflows down into a sump, okay? We can understand that concept. The Beanimal system typically uses 3 bulkheads to do that, and I'll explain why, I guess. So the first one's where the water goes. The second one is a backup to that. And the third one is a backup to that. It's supposedly a never, ever, ever fail system. Hold on, I gotta ban someone here. I don't like this Jaden guy. Block user. Okay, back to my explaining here. And what you do is you put on what's called a gate valve on the first one. So that lets you dial it in so you can get a true siphon going. It'll let you put like 3,000 gallons of water through a 1-inch pipe when normally free-flowing you can only max get 600. Then the second one is the backup. So if you were ever have a snail get in there and block it, it would go through there. And you also use that to calibrate a little bit. And then, because if you're ramming, let's say, 3,000 gallons of water through this pipe, the second one that's always open can only handle 600. So you have another one on the third one, typically with a gate valve, also, that could handle the extra 3,000 gallons. And the question is, are you in for a world of hurt by not being able to access it? Yes. The question is, when? Is it tomorrow or is it in 10 years? At some point, you'll be sad, but I think you'll be okay. You know, most people are going to put that exterior box close to the wall. You know, you can always kind of get to it from the top. But yeah, getting your arm in there, if you got to replace any of those bulkheads. But the reality is, most bulkheads should last a very long time. And if you know you're putting something into a situation where you really never want to take it out, maybe invest in some better bulkheads, like the Spears bulkheads. Yeah, they, depending on if you're using 2-inch ones or something like that, it could be like $40 a piece. But if you never want to get back in there again, might be worth that investment. That being said, I use tons of normal bulkheads. Rarely, ever, ever, ever have a failure. So yeah, that's my advice on that. Let's see here. I think I got to call it, guys, because I'm going, a little long here. It's about an hour and a half. Yeah, so let me think. What else? Yeah, buyer stuff. We got Hikari and breeder stuff on sale. And gonna do some Christmas live streams. What else? Okay, I got one last thing. So everyone that hung out till the end, all right, here's the deal. If you put in the notes section and you place an order tonight, bumper sticker, we'll send you a free Aquarium Co-op bumper sticker. I just had them printed up. I've been out for a long time. They're about this big. They have the Aquarium Co-op logo, Edmonds, Washington. I've got one on my car. Kaylee's got one on her car. If you do that, kind of a cool thing, go ahead and, order it up. And, I take that back because I don't want to punish anyone who already ordered tonight. So, anyone that ordered since when the live stream started until tonight at midnight, we will send you a bumper sticker. So that way, if you already ordered, I don't want to penalize you because that would be mean, right? So, but yeah, anyway, we'll throw in a free bumper sticker. Yeah, I know. Some of you going, yeah, I don't need that. And other people going, sweet. But yeah, so it's true. Nothing is free. You do have to spend money. You'd have to spend at least $7 to get that bumper sticker because you'd have to buy like a pipette or something and then $6 shipping. That being said, nothing's free. I got to buy them too. If I put that logo on a shirt, I would buy it. I actually have that logo on some older shirts. Maybe I'll incorporate that into the Christmas giveaways. I've got some old shirts. Oh, Flynn, you're on to me. Says, any plans on making the Aquarium Co-op ice scrapers for cars? Us Canadians need some. I have some. I think I've got about 15 of them left. I was going to give them away in part of the promo for Christmas because I don't plan on making them again. And if I ever get famous or big and well known, maybe you can sell them on eBay for like $1.52 or something. But they're kind of a cool thing. I try not to repeat stuff I make just because I think it's fun to have like a collection of random crap, right? So, yeah. All right. I think that's it. Yeah, retro Aquarium Co-op shirts. Yeah, I do have some old ones. Yeah. All right, I got to go. I'm hungry. What do I want to do? There was something I wanted to do, but anyway, I'll see you guys later. Video on Wednesday, maybe sooner. I'm thinking about putting out a couple more videos this week. We'll see. Don't hold me to it. But who do I want to shout out? I haven't shouted like anyone out besides LR Bretts today. Shout out, if you guys haven't watched it already, go watch the interview that Flynn did with me. Go to Flynn's Fish Forum. He's got like a 35-minute interview with me. That's kind of a cool thing. I thought it was rad. He drove down from Canada. Check that out. If you want to support Bob at Steamfod Aquatics, his dog went in for surgery. A lot of you guys know that. And you could go to his channel. Well, actually, go to like Michael Sternick's channel. He's got a video on it if you wanted to donate any money there. Let's see here. There's a question I got to answer because I do have David Smith. Opinions on the Seache CO2 life system. I tried them. I never got it to work the way it's claiming to work. So, yeah. I tried both. They've got 2 units. I tried them. The electrolysis with the carbon in theory makes sense, and it didn't make plants pearl and stuff like that, and I didn't get the good growth on them. So that, I would say, save your $150. It didn't work for me, so yeah. All right, let's see here. That's it. That's all I got. I'm closing this down. I'm never going to stop answering questions unless I get out of here. So thanks for hanging out. Maybe I can convince my wife, she's not even home yet, to make me tacos if I'm lucky. And yeah, so we'll see you next time, guys.